Have you ever stopped to wonder if the very idea of being good is actually just a sophisticated trap? What if everything you've ever been told about virtue, sacrifice, and humility was designed not to set you free, but to keep you obedient? Imagine for a moment that your so-called goodness is not a sign of strength, but a sign of submission, a habit formed by years of praise for yielding and punishment for daring to be yourself. Today, we're going to unravel one of the biggest lies you've ever been told, that being good makes you free. The truth is far more complex and far more powerful. Let me take you back to my own childhood. I was always the good kid, quiet, polite, eager to please. Teachers loved me, adults praised me, and I took pride in being the one who never caused trouble. But as I grew older, I started to feel a strange emptiness inside. I realized I had become an expert at hiding my true thoughts, always saying what others wanted to hear, always putting my needs last. Have you ever felt that way? Like you're living someone else's life, wearing a mask that you can't take off. Maybe you've been the reliable friend, the dependable colleague, the selfless family member, always there for others, but never quite sure who you are when you're alone. In this video, we're going to confront the uncomfortable truth about virtue and morality. We'll explore how much of what we call goodness is actually a mechanism of obedience, a way to keep us predictable and harmless. We'll dive deep into Nietzsche's critique of herd morality, the radical idea of the Übermensch, and the difference between a virtue that demands and a virtue that gives. Along the way, we'll challenge everything you thought you knew about sacrifice, humility, and what it means to live authentically. By the end of this journey, you'll have a new understanding of power, authenticity, and the freedom that comes from living from your own overflowing abundance. Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. When was the last time you questioned your own goodness? Have you ever felt trapped by the need to please others? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And stick around because later in the video, I'll share a powerful exercise that can help you reconnect with your authentic self and break free from the chains of imposed virtue. Let's begin by exposing the biggest lie, that being good makes you free. From the moment we're born, society shapes us to please. We're praised when we yield, punished when we dare to assert ourselves. The right thing, we're told, is to sacrifice, to be silent, to nullify our own desires. Humility is redefined as keeping your head down, swallowing your truth, and calling it nobility. Over time, we learn to take pride in this self-erasure, calling it character when it's really just fear of taking a stand. We call it kindness when it's really just our inability to say no. Society loves the obedient. It reveres those who follow the rules, who adapt, who repeat. But it despises and fears those who dare to create their own path. That's why Nietzsche's philosophy is so disturbing. He doesn't offer comfort. He throws you into the abyss. He doesn't tell you what is right. He forces you to question why you think it is. When you read Thus Spoke Zarathustra, you're not reading a philosophy manual. You're hearing a voice that burns everything you thought you knew about virtue, morality, and sacrifice. This video is a confrontation, a mirror you may not want to face but need to. Because if you live your life trying to be a good person, you might be living a farce. You may have adapted so much to others' expectations that you've forgotten who you really are. And this isn't about defending selfishness or romanticizing arrogance. It's about something much deeper: authenticity, power, and living from yourself, not from what others expect of you. Think about the times you were rewarded for compliance. Maybe you were praised for being nice or helpful, but only when you put your own needs aside. Maybe you've seen it in the workplace, the employee who never says no, quietly resenting their inability to set boundaries. Or in your family, the one who always sacrifices, earning admiration but losing touch with their own desires. These patterns are everywhere, shaping us from the inside out. Some will say, but isn't kindness and obedience necessary for society to function? Yes, cooperation is important, but Nietzsche warns that society doesn't just reward good behavior, it demands conformity and punishes authenticity. The world loves the obedient, but despises those who dare to create their own path. This tension between belonging and selfhood is at the heart of the human struggle. If much of our virtue is really a habit of shrinking, what happens when we stop pretending? What if, instead of shrinking, we let ourselves overflow? What if we dared to live from our own abundance, rather than from fear and obligation? This brings us to Nietzsche's most radical idea, the death of God. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't just being provocative. He was announcing the collapse of absolute truths and inherited morals that had sustained Western civilization for centuries. The death of God isn't about the existence or non-existence of a divine being. It's about the end of unquestionable commandments, the end of prefabricated meaning. What remains when all of this falls apart? Chaos, emptiness, the vertigo of realizing there is no longer a ready-made structure to follow. No fixed, eternal good or evil guaranteed by some divine authority. And it's in this abyss that Nietzsche plants the seed of a new possibility, the birth of the Übermensch, the Overman. The Übermensch is not a superhero or a tyrant. It's someone who has transcended the morality of the herd, someone who no longer needs an external guide to live because they have become the creator of their own values. They don't live seeking approval. They don't expect life to have ready-made meaning. They construct that meaning from within. Nietzsche saw the human being as a bridge, not as an end, a bridge between the animal and the Übermensch. The tragedy of many is that they settle in the middle. They cling to ready-made doctrines, become hostages of inherited ideas, live seeking to fit into a world that rewards conformity and punishes authenticity. The birth of the Übermensch is painful because it demands destruction. It requires burning everything that is old, everything that was accepted without questioning. It's a kind of rebirth that only happens after the symbolic death of what you thought you were. Perhaps you are exactly there in the middle of this crossing, feeling that the old beliefs no longer make sense but still afraid to let go of the edge. And that's okay. It's in this conflict that the new can be born. But for that, courage is needed. The courage to abandon the crutch of inherited morality, the courage to walk without maps. Nietzsche didn't come to comfort you, he came to challenge you. If you want true freedom, you'll need to give up security. You'll have to face the void and create something from it. Pause and ask yourself, are you clinging to old beliefs because they're familiar, or are you ready to step into the unknown and create your own path? What fears hold you back from embracing your freedom? Take a moment to reflect on how this resonates with your own life. Now, let's examine two contrasting kinds of virtue, the virtue that demands and the virtue that gives. The first is the virtue society praises, the one that demands sacrifice, submission, and constant proof of goodness. It's a virtue that forces you to say yes when you want to say no, turning you into a martyr who must then take pride in suffering. You have been trained to believe that doing good is always right, that being virtuous is synonymous with being moral, that helping others, following rules, and fulfilling duties is what makes someone worthy. But Nietzsche invites you to look deeper and see what really hides behind this so-called virtue. There is a virtue that is not noble, although it is presented as such. It is the virtue that demands, that charges, that paralyzes you with the idea that you must sacrifice yourself all the time, that you need to prove your goodness, that you must show yourself useful, humble, submissive. It disguises itself as altruism but is intoxicated with vanity. It makes you say yes when you want to say no. It transforms you into a martyr and then demands that you take pride in it. Nietzsche saw the trap. This supposed virtue is a social construct made to domesticate the individual. It's a type of morality created not to free the human spirit, but to keep it chained. A morality that arises from the resentment of the weak, those who do not have the strength to assert their own will, and then invent a morality to condemn the strong. But there is another way, another virtue, one that does not come from obligation, guilt, or fear of punishment. A virtue that is not built on absence but on abundance, that does not expect reward because it does not need to. Virtue that demands nothing because it only knows how to give. This is the virtue that Nietzsche describes in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the virtue that gives because it overflows, because it is full, because it cannot contain its strength. Think of the sun. It does not choose who it will shine upon. It does not ask for thanks. It does not expect a return. It simply shines because it is in its nature. This is what Nietzsche proposes, that human beings, when they reach a state of inner power, no longer need rules. They act from their essence. They give because they are free. Freedom here is not doing what one wants. It is not needing approval to do what needs to be done. Of course, this isn't easy. Most of us have been conditioned to believe that being good requires effort, sacrifice, and self-denial. Letting go of the need for approval and trusting in your own abundance requires courage and practice. It means breaking free from deep-rooted fears and social conditioning. But when you do, you discover a new kind of power, a power that comes from within and cannot be taken away. So, what does it look like to live from this overflowing abundance? How do we move from the virtue that demands to the virtue that gives? What does it mean to live in such a way that giving becomes inevitable, natural, and free from the need for recognition or reward? Nietzsche's vision extends beyond individual ethics to a new way of being in the world. Imagine a society where people act from their own fullness instead of fear or need for validation. This challenges not only personal habits, but the very foundations of religion, morality, and culture. If more people embrace this overflowing virtue, what might the world look like? Could it spark new forms of creativity, community, and freedom? Or would it provoke conflict with entrenched systems? What happens when more people embrace this overflowing virtue? Could it lead to new forms of community, creativity, even conflict? How do we balance abundance with the reality that everything, even virtue, must one day end? Nietzsche reminds us that everything that lives must die, that even the purest virtue is subject to the laws of impermanence. The true creator knows when to give, and also when to withdraw, when to let go and allow new life to emerge. If these ideas resonate with you, I encourage you to explore Nietzsche's works further, as well as thinkers like Carl Jung, who also grappled with authenticity and the shadow self. Check the pinned comment for recommended readings in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow, which offers practical tools for self-discovery. Dive deeper, question everything, and don't be afraid to let go of what no longer serves you. Today, we challenge the notion that being good is always virtuous. We uncovered how much of traditional virtue is obedience disguised as nobility. We explored Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch and the death of God as a call to create our own values. Finally, we saw that true virtue comes from abundance and overflows naturally, without demand or guilt. The core takeaway: stop bending to a world that underestimates your potential. True virtue is not about fitting in or seeking approval, but about overflowing from your own fullness. When you live from this place, giving becomes inevitable and you no longer need permission to be yourself. If this video spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment below, what's one belief about being good you're ready to question? And remember, the most courageous act may simply be to be unapologetically you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.